As we announce the Grandmaster's Blitz Battle Championship, Shaun and I take a look ahead at all that you can expect in 2016. Are chess analogies being overused in the sports world today? Mike and I discuss the subject in Time Trouble. And as Fabiano Caruana gets ready to make his move at Tata Steel Chess, Peter Dockers brings us all the news coverage you would ever need. It's ChessCenter, the water's warm, jump right in, let's get swimming. Well, Shaun, some may be more surprised than others that we're giving our surprise of the week to Hou Yifan for her stellar start in Tata Steel Chess 2016. She is amongst the leaders as we move into the middle and back half of the event. After a brilliant win over David Navarra, it seems that she truly has arrived as Judith Polgar's successor, as the strongest female player in the world and the only one who really deserves invites to these A-group top elite events. Shaun, are you that surprised by Hou Yifan's performance, and what do you expect to see from her the rest of the way?
Yeah, I don't think we should be that surprised. You know, she is coming in as the second lowest rated player in the event. However, she was invited to the A group previously in YKNZ, and after a slow start, proved that she deserved to be there with a couple of wins. And this year, she's staying true to form. She's got strong draws against So and Karyakin, and this win against Navarra. So it's looking good. I think this is the kind of chess play that we can expect from Yifan in the future.
Well, we'll see how she holds up in the second half, but to close out our coverage of the first half of Tata Steel 2016, Peter Dockers, we're going to turn it over to you in featured news.
For the featured news section of ChessCenter, I'm at the moment in Amsterdam and not in Wijk aan Zee. The Tata Steel Chess Tournament's 5th round will be played here in the capital of the Netherlands in the Nemo Science Center. One of the other rounds next week will be played actually in the Railway Museum in Utrecht. After 4 rounds, it's Fabiano Caruana who's leading the pack with 3 points. He beat Pavel Elyanov in round 1, and then he had to face the world champion Magnus Carlsen in round 2. For the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, I'm responsible for the live broadcast with commentary by Yasser Sayarwan, and I was making some random moves when we were testing our setup. So I played 1g3, g6, and 5 minutes later the game started, and Carlsen and Caruana played 1g3, g6. It was a very unusual opening, and it was a very sharp game, and it eventually ended in a draw after some vigorous defense by Caruana. In the 3rd round, the American-Italian beat Mickey Adams, and that wasn't a very smooth game actually. Caruana said himself, "I don't know how much worse I was, but I was definitely worse. At some point he just lost the plot." So yeah, Mickey Adams, the oldest participant this year in the group, he started to make some inaccuracies and eventually lost that game. And then in the 4th round, Fabiano Caruana, he drew with Anish Giri, and he could have beaten the Dutchman. He was actually winning in a rook ending, but he missed it, and it was a draw. So Caruana could have been actually a full point ahead of the pack. At the moment, there are 5 players trailing him by half a point, and that is Wesley So, Hou Yifan, Sergei Karyakin, Ding Liren, and Pavel Elyanov. The latter, the Ukrainian Grandmaster, he was very lucky in his game against Shahryar Mamedyarov, but we will see more about that in this episode of ChessCenter. One of the players on 2.5 points is Hou Yifan, and she makes a very good impression so far. In the 4th round she beat David Navarra with a fantastic rook sacrifice, and it was actually Navarra himself the round before who also sacrificed the rook against Anish Giri. So yeah, only 4 rounds have been played and we've seen some fantastic chess already, real fighting chess. Maybe it says something that so far not a single Berlin has appeared on the board. So yeah, 9 more rounds will be played in Wijk aan Zee and Amsterdam and Utrecht, and we will definitely return to this tournament in next week's episode of ChessCenter.
Well, Robert, our move of the week is going to give us a little bit of deja vu. Weren't we just reviewing one of the best moves of 2015 from David Navarra? And now, to start off 2016, he's not done surprising us and amazing us on the chessboard. Against Giri here, he played first a positional sort of sacrifice with f5, and maybe that was all it was. At least that's what I thought. But as Giri said in a post-game interview, he thought something bad might happen in the game. Robert, tell everybody what Navarra played here and what that bad thing was that Giri seemed to have a good feeling about.
Yeah, it looks like David Navarro's changed his tactical approach in 2016. In 2015, we saw his king march all the way to h8 with the white pieces. Here he's all about the rook sacrifices. Rook takes f5, phenomenal shot, putting pressure on the f7 pawn, forcing Giri to capture that rook on f5, which further exposes the black king. Bishop h5 by Navarra, again, hitting the f7 square. Giri didn't have much of a choice here. If he makes a move like knight d7, for example, Navarra can go bishop takes f7 check, forcing the king over to h8 and swinging his queen over to h3, which has some deadly ideas like queen takes h7 mate. So Geary figured he couldn't go into a line like this, so instead of knight d7, went bishop d5, protecting f7. But it doesn't actually protect the square because rook takes d5. Navarro wants nothing to do with his rooks. Queen takes d5, and after bishop takes f7 check, we have a huge material imbalance.
Well, and with that imbalance, it favors white because one of the factors you normally look at is who has the open king, who has more pawn weaknesses, and so Navarro's sacrifice really was justified by the predicament of Geary's king and the weak pawns. But unfortunately, after a little bit of merry-go-round, a little bit of tickle with the king, Navarro didn't necessarily find the best move here. He repeated one more time and then queen f3, which, though strong and he was never in danger of losing, did allow Geary to defend well to get the half point. Perhaps the best move, as pointed out by commentators, is the sort of subtle bishop to d4. One example of why that's strong is that if a natural move is played, now this check and another check immediately forces that bishop to fall because of the discovery, and white's attack against the open king should be enough to finish the job. So, though the game didn't end with best play necessarily by Navarro, it still doesn't take anything away from it in our eyes. Rook takes f5, a brilliant shot, and when I see a rook sacrifice come off the board, again, where there's no real forcing obvious follow-up, nothing gets me any more excited. David Navarro, we wish you well, young man, and hope to see even more exciting chess as the year goes on. Well, Shaun, though there were many topics this week we could have touched on from the world of social networking as it relates to chess, nothing came across our desk that was any more exciting and inspiring than the video we are about to show fans of ChessCenter right now. As I transition to the clip, Shaun, tell everybody what your first thoughts were when you saw this young man sit down at the chessboard and start blitzing as I've now started the video.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought was that this is so hopeful. Look me in the eye and tell me there's no hope for the human race. Hey, this is just amazing. There are no obstacles that cannot be overcome. Well, maybe I'm getting too cheesy with it, but it's really moving.
No, I think it is moving, and I think it's an example of don't ever tell somebody what they can't do, and especially as he stands up here and shows us his castling technique, it's just amazing. And I'll say that it's interesting because it's more than just a speed chess video when you see somebody playing against odds, against their own personal odds. And when I first saw the video, I admit my first thought was, why is he using his feet? I didn't realize that he didn't have the ability to use his hands, and so it just made it even more exciting to watch him as he found a way to play every move just as fast as his opponent. And we salute that young man. Encourage everybody to check out that share on Facebook, first given to us by Peter Hein Nielsen via Peter Dockers, and we look forward to that man's bright future in chess. Well, joining us once again, obviously on site somewhere in the world. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Forget that. Where in the world is Mike Klein? And what's the deal with the goggles, buddy?
Danny, I was snowboarding outside Montreal. A blizzard hit. I'm stuck in Vermont for the night, but that's okay. We're still going to do ChessCenter. So the show must go on. And Danny, one of the big pieces of news that came out of this last week was the president of the Russian Chess Federation, Andrei Filatov. He wants to bring an idea back from the 1940s. That is, anybody who can show the right money and the right match conditions can play the world champion at any time. So throw out this entire cycle and just replace it with basically who's got the biggest paycheck. This idea would allow anybody to challenge Magnus whenever they wanted to, as long as both sides agree to terms. So a fascinating idea, and one that, well, basically I've only read about in history books. But you know what, Danny? There's an event that's going on right now, which has a little more timeliness. Peter Doggers already covered the main event of Tata Steel earlier in the show. And now I'd like to talk about the Challengers Group, where another name from the old, not quite the 1940s, is doing very well. Grandmaster Dreyev is 4 out of 4, a 3,300 performance rating, and he's on his way to winning, which would qualify him to play in the top group next year. Now, why is that so interesting? Well, Dreyev won the whole shebang, clear first in 1995. Wow. I did some research, Danny, as you know I like to do. No player has gone this long between winning events. Now, of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. He's only going to qualify for 2017 if he wins this year. But if he were to win next year, that'd be a 22 years in between wins. Gives you some hope for the old folks, doesn't it, Danny?
It's amazing, especially since a lot of those guys are seeded, for lack of a better way to put it, to give really challenging games to the young and up-and-comers, right? Not always expected to earn their way back into the top group are those guys, but if Dreyev does it, he will certainly have earned the right.
Danny, he's actually playing
now. The final storyline we're going to cover, of course, Gibraltar is the next big event getting set to start at the end of the month. What major points do you have to make about that event?
Well, continuing along the line of big open tournaments that top players are playing in, we've got several people that are playing in the Candidates tournament in March, choosing to play an open in January. I think that's very interesting. Nakamura's going to play, Anand's going to play. MVL not playing the Candidates, but he's going to play in Gibraltar. Some of the top Chinese players like Li Chao, Yu Yangyi, and they're all going because Gibraltar sounds kind of nice in the middle of the winter time, but also the money's there. £20,000 for the winner of first. We've also got a lot of the top female players that are there because this tournament is notable for having some of the biggest female prizes on the circuit. There's going to be 12 female prizes. Top purse is £15,000, probably about 22,000 US dollars. So going to be really exciting to see another strong open tournament there. And Chess.com will be on site bringing you guys live news reports at chess.com/news.
Yeah, well, we can't wait, and especially with Hou Yifan being wrapped up and busy in YKNZ, it really is an open event for any of the top female players to grab that prize. I believe Hou Yifan competed, if not last year, at least some point in the last couple of years. Mike, we thank you for joining us. We wish you the best of luck on a safe journey home, and we will see you in time trouble, my friend.
Thanks. I'm going to go hit the slopes right now.
Moving on to the sad side of things, Robert, perhaps the much sadder side of things. Here we're going to review a blunder that, when all things are said and done, may go down as one of the biggest blunders of the year. Certainly one of the most inexplicable moments I've ever seen in Super Grandmaster chess. Please take us through what Mamedyarov played here in his game with Elyanov from Tata Steel Chess, and try, if you can, to explain White's thought process.
Danny, to this point, Mamedyarov played an excellent game. He's currently up 2 pawns in the position, and he started off with a good move. Queen to g5. Yes, the rook on b1 is under attack, but right now he's attacking black's rook on d8. Elyanov slid that rook over to c8, protecting it, also putting pressure on the c-pawn. And here's where Mamedyarov made a shack-sized blunder. He simply made c5, a move that really cannot be explained other than the fact that he just forgot his rook on b1 was hanging. So Elyanov snapped off that rook, and with it, forced an immediate resignation.
Mamedyarov has nothing better to do here, right? Not instantly you go from a swing like that, right? Plus maybe 2 to minus that, just being completely lost. Forget the computer evaluation. Really sad. Your heart goes out to somebody like that, especially when you're losing a winning position with a blunder. But it can't escape our grasp, and whenever things like that come across our desk, we got to show it on ChessCenter. So Mamedyarov, you take our blunder of the week. Well, Shaun, for the first time, at least in a long time, as far as I can remember, you and I get to break news in the Looking Ahead segment as the announcement of the Grandmaster Blitz Battle Championship for 2016 comes across our desk via an article submitted by our senior editor and staff, Pete. Tell everybody what they can expect to see in this amazing and first-time event of its kind.
Yes. This is $35,000 in total prize money to be spread out amongst the participants. You've got MVL, you've got Nakamura, you've got the reigning World Blitz champion Grishuk. This is called the Grandmaster Blitz Battles. It's a knockout format. It's online chess to rival over-the-board tournaments. I cannot wait for this.
I don't think we've ever put together a series of events like this that have mattered so much. Of course, everyone knows our Blitz Death Matches. The last one we did between MVL and Nakamura was very high caliber in terms of the level of the players and the chess played. But in this series of events in knockout format, we expect to see many of the world's best. As you mentioned, Hikaru Nakamura, considered by many to be the best online blitz and bullet player. MVL, who's one of the most exciting young players to watch, of course. And then you have the reigning Blitz World Champion already committed. We expect to have commitments from many of the other top players. I don't want to spill any news too early, as I'm currently emailing with lots of them, but we will have the field set very soon to look ahead at what we can expect here. The format, which everyone can read up more on, will include best game prizes. It will also include Chess 960. It will include live commentary, and it will have interviews with all the players in the events, both before and after the match, similar to what, again, people have seen before in our Blitz Death Matches, but with so much more on the line. Shaun, I know you're dancing over there like a giddy little chess girl that you are, but Everyone will have to wait for the first match to take place in April. And who do you have as the early odds-on favorite? Knowing you're only allowed to talk about the three that have committed, if you had to take Nakamura and Grishuk and look ahead to that match as a potential finals matchup, who would you take in that match?
Well, I'd have to go with Nakamura. He's the hometown favorite, so I feel like he's going to come through. But what an awesome test, the World Blitz champion versus the deathmatch champion over here, Nakamura.
Yeah, I honestly feel like outside of Magnus Carlsen, who we've talked about, Grishuk may be the best potential matchup for Hikaru Nakamura, one that is only going to leave fireworks and broken pieces on the board. So take a look at the article from Pete on the website, everybody. Make sure you mark your calendars and sit at the edge of your seats for our announcement of the other top players joining, and get ready for the first ever Grandmaster Blitz Battles Championship. And as we welcome everybody into the last segment of the show, we welcome FIDE Master Mike Klein in from the cold. Mike, are you ready to rock?
Off the chairlift and ready to go.
All right, well, I hope that time trouble's half as exciting as those slopes were, buddy. Why don't you start us off with question number one?
Grandmaster Dreyev started the Tata Steel Challengers Group 4-0, even though he's only a few years away from being able to play in the World Senior. Danny, are you regretting what you said about him last week?
If you're referring to the fact that I said he was just an older guy there to challenge the young ones and kind of fill up space, yeah, I do kind of regret it. The other thing I regret is seeing all these sports commentators, especially on the NFL networks, make analogies to chess and the chess match, the chess game being played. Are we sick of these ridiculous metaphors at this point?
Yeah, it's like any kind of modicum of thinking means they have to say the word chess. I mean, last time I checked, coaches are paid to think. But maybe the bigger question, Danny, is should we care? Chess being mentioned over and over in front of millions of fans, is that a problem?
Good press is, any press is good press, as they say, but I just don't know that we need the sports reference metaphors at this point for the game to keep flourishing. One thing we do need to do is acknowledge that Alexander Hou Yifan, world FIDE knockout champion in 1999, just turned 50 on January 18th. I feel like these world champions of the knockout format don't get as much credit in being remembered as they deserve. Mike, am I right about that?
They may not, but Hou Yifan's kind of complicit. He did retire shortly after playing that tournament, so maybe not the best example. Now, a more recent event, Grandmaster Popov just won a tournament in New Delhi, but he did it on tie breaks. Shouldn't we be using Armageddon or Blitz playoff to decide all tournaments at this point?
Of course we should. Why decide any tournament on a silly tiebreak system that no one understands? Use a fun, exciting, rapid format that all the fans want to see. It builds your event. Stop making bad decisions, organizers. Will it be a bad decision for us to consider Fabiano Caruana the odds-on favorite at the candidates if he goes on to win YKZ?
I mean, you could still consider him the favorite, but I wouldn't do so just because of this tournament. I mean, if you look at the fields of the two events, one's got a couple of players who are not exactly top tier. The other one, every single game is brutal and you got to play them twice. So I don't really consider these two events relatable in that way.
Well, you make good points about that, buddy. Either way, we will have you and Peter Doggers bringing us all the news over the next week as Gibraltar kicks off. And, of course, as YKZ comes to an end at the end of the month, Mike, we will see you in next week's Chess Center. Thank you for joining us.
See you from Gibraltar next week, Danny. Thank you.